Welcome to Narcissism, Parental Alienation, and the Soul by Claude McDaniel. This program is to help you heal and navigate through the hardships associated with narcissistic alienation and how one's soul can be considered. Please like and subscribe.
Welcome back to Narcissism, Parental Alienation, and the Soul. We now explore empathy to a much deeper level. Welcome back to Narcissism, Parental Alienation, and the Soul. In earlier episodes, we explored how Plato believed the soul was balanced through reason, spirit, and appetite. We then examined Aristotle's understanding of the soul, the Judeo-Christian tradition, Eastern philosophy, and modern psychology's view of human identity. Today we begin moving from philosophy into neuroscience. For centuries, philosophers asked, "What is the soul?" Today's researchers ask a different question. What happens inside the brain when empathy disappears? Can compassion be measured? Can the ability to understand another person's suffering become impaired? And what might these discoveries tell us about narcissism and parental alienation? Let's begin. What is empathy? Empathy is often described as the ability to understand and respond to another person's emotional experience. Yet psychologists have learned that empathy is not a single ability. Instead, it consists of at least two distinct forms. The first is cognitive empathy. The second is affective empathy. Although they often work together, they are very different. Cognitive empathy. Cognitive empathy is sometimes called perspective taking. Psychologists often abbreviate this as PT. Perspective taking is the ability to understand another person's point of view. Ask questions like, what might this person be thinking? Why are they reacting this way? How would I feel if I were in their situation? Notice something important. Cognitive empathy does not require someone to actually care. A person may understand another's emotions perfectly, without sharing those emotions. This distinction becomes especially important when studying narcissism. Affective empathy. Affective empathy is different. It is emotional, automatic. When someone cries, you feel sadness. When someone suffers, you experience concern. When someone rejoices, you share in their happiness. This emotional resonance forms the foundation of compassion. It motivates kindness, forgiveness, mercy, sacrifice. Without effective empathy, human relationships become increasingly transactional. The brain and empathy. Modern neuroscience has shown that empathy depends upon a network of interacting brain regions rather than a single empathy center. Researchers have identified areas involved in recognizing facial expressions, processing emotions, regulating impulses, and understanding another person's perspective. When these systems function together, healthy empathy becomes possible. When parts of this network function differently, empathic responses may be reduced or impaired. This does not mean that empathy is controlled by only one part of the brain. Instead, empathy emerges through the coordinated activity of many regions working together. Narcissism and selective empathy. One of the most fascinating discoveries in recent psychological research concerns individuals with narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD. Contrary to popular belief, many people with narcissistic traits are capable of recognizing what others think and feel. In other words, their cognitive empathy may remain relatively intact. However, they often struggle with affective empathy, the emotional capacity to genuinely share another person's pain. Some researchers describe this as a selective empathy deficit. Empathy may appear when it benefits the individual, yet disappear when another person's needs conflict with their own desire for admiration, control, or protection of self-image. This distinction helps explain why some narcissistic individuals can appear deeply compassionate in public while behaving very differently in private. Can empathy be performed? This raises an important question. Is every expression of compassion genuine? Not necessarily. Human beings are capable of displaying empathy for many reasons. Sometimes because they truly care. Sometimes because social expectations demand it. Sometimes because appearing compassionate serves a personal goal. Psychologists often refer to impression management, the tendency to present we in ways that earn approval or avoid criticism. This is not unique to narcissism. Most people occasionally manage impressions. The difference lies in motivation and consistency. When compassion becomes merely a performance rather than a heartfelt response, relationships begin to suffer. When perspective becomes distorted. Perspective taking is generally considered a healthy psychological skill. Yet perspective taking can become distorted when a person's beliefs no longer align with reality. An individual may gradually convince themselves that their own interpretations are unquestionably true, even when evidence suggests otherwise. Over time, repeated distortions may become deeply ingrained. Within high-conflict family systems, these distorted narratives can spread to others through repetition, emotional influence, and selective storytelling. When children, relatives, or friends repeatedly hear only one version of events, they may eventually accept that version as truth. This process can contribute to parental alienation, where one parent becomes viewed almost entirely through a distorted or one-sided lens. The Janussean nature of narcissism. Recent research reminds us that narcissism is not a single, uniform personality style. Instead, psychologists increasingly recognize two overlapping dimensions: grandiose narcissism and vulnerable narcissism. Some researchers describe this duality as Janussean, named after the Roman god Janus, who was depicted with two faces looking in opposite directions. One face projects confidence. The other conceals insecurity. Grandiose narcissism. Grandiose narcissism is the form most people recognize. Confidence, charm, status-seeking, dominance, a desire for admiration. When threatened, individuals with these traits may become defensive, manipulative, or aggressive in protecting their self-image. In some high-conflict situations, this may include attempts to damage another person's reputation or relationships. Vulnerable narcissism. Vulnerable narcissism presents very differently. Instead of outward confidence, it often involves hypersensitivity, insecurity, shame, and emotional instability. Criticism feels devastating. Perceived rejection becomes overwhelming. Some individuals withdraw. Others become angry. Still others alternate between self-pity and resentment. Although grandiose and vulnerable narcissism appear different, research suggests they often overlap within the same individual. The soul and empathy. As our series continues, we return once again to our central question. If empathy gradually diminishes, if compassion becomes selective, if relationships become tools rather than sacred bonds, what are we witnessing? A neurological process? A psychological disorder? A moral failure? Or something philosophers have wrestled with for thousands of years? A profound disconnection from the qualities that many traditions associate with the soul? Science cannot answer that question completely. Neither can philosophy, nor theology alone. But together they invite us into a deeper conversation. Hope for recovery. Perhaps the most encouraging discovery from neuroscience is that the human brain is capable of change. Healthy relationships, therapy, reflection, humility, personal responsibility. These experiences can strengthen emotional awareness and improve how we relate to others. Healing is possible. For those living with narcissistic traits who genuinely seek change. And for those recovering from narcissistic abuse. Understanding the problem is often the first step toward freedom. Closing statement. In our next episode, we turn to one of the most important questions in this entire series. Can narcissism truly change? Can empathy be learned? Can damaged relationships be restored? And what does genuine repentance, or genuine healing, actually look like? Join me as we continue exploring narcissism, parental alienation, and the soul. If you found this discussion meaningful, please subscribe, share it with others, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, remember, knowledge helps us understand the mind. Compassion transforms the heart. And character is revealed not by what we know, but by how we choose to treat one another. This ends of episode 3.
This ends episode 3. Narcissism, parental alienation, and the soul. Please like, subscribe, and tap the bell to be notified of our next episode.